All right, Bobby Slowik fired. We wondered. Demeco said he needed a week. He got a week, and bye-bye. Bobby Slowik has been fired. Demeco, a man of his word. It is SNL. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. We were both live earlier today. Shout out to everyone who joined us for our immediate thoughts. I also posted a video with immediate thoughts. I think the best resource during this time as well is Cody Stoots' 30 potential candidates as Bobby Slowik replacements, which he actually made 4 weeks ago. I don't think there's a resource like that. So strong recommendation to follow along on that as well.
And I'm constantly updating that. Names as they become available get dropped to the bottom. More names as they pop up get added. Like Hank Fraley got added recently, the offensive line coach for the Lions. And if guys are rumored to be associated with another job, that gets updated as well. So it's a constantly evolving document. You'll want to favorite it. It's over at Houston Football.
Yeah, and I think it's just such a good resource to check out. So here was my biggest takeaway with Bobby Slowik, and there were two things that kind of, I think, as we got to this point, and we don't have to harp on how much he sucked. We know this. It was a week-to-week thing. So we're not gonna sit here. You guys know that we felt like it was kind of a lost cause with Bobby Slowik.
Damn it, Bobby.
By the way, that's the thing people are most sad about. They think that drop might be dead now. But I think there were a couple of things that came to mind. Number one was I just did not think that Bobby Slowik was the man to oversee a Demeco Ryans offense with a defensive-minded coach. And number two, I asked this yesterday a couple of times, are we underestimating Demeco Ryans? I think there was kind of a defeatist attitude where it was like same old Texans type of vibe, where it was like, well, they're gonna do the same old thing. They're gonna kick the can down the road. They're gonna hire Chris Strausser. I think a lot of this kind of intensified after they put Shaq Mason back in the lineup. I think that was where it was kind of like, oh God, like we're kind of on the same old thing. But I think my biggest takeaway is Demeco Ryans kind of lets you know, and he lets you know that this ain't the same old thing, and there's a new sheriff in town. And I'm not going to settle for mediocrity. So that's really my biggest takeaway from this.
Demeco Ryans had a difficult decision to make, and he goes and he makes that decision. I say difficult because, this is a guy you picked to an extent. It's admitting that maybe you got it wrong, or it's not easy to make that decision because you know the guy, but it's risky to keep him. It was risky to go get a new guy. It's far riskier to keep him and ruin your offense for a whole nother year. And there was not a lot of demonstration that Bobby Slowik was going to get this thing correct, going to get this thing right. You think about the predictability, the lack of creativeness that this offense displayed. That didn't exactly instill faith in Demeco Ryans. So he went and made the decision to move on. And, it's part of the job as the head coach. You've got to make the difficult decisions. You got to change coaches out. Then the other part of that is you got to go and find those guys. So this is only one part of the Demeco Ryans head coach equation outside of what he does for the defense, organizing the team and everything like that. Like, the firings are tough. You got to get the hirings right too. And so that's the other important element of this. But Demeco Ryans given himself a chance to improve that offense, take the Texans where they've never been in 2025. I don't imagine many of us would have thought they were going to go anywhere close to where they've never been if Bobby Slowik had been retained.
Yeah, it was a lost cause, because I think the mistakes he were making, they weren't like, oh, this is a young offensive coordinator. Like, the mistakes he was making were just, they were ungodly, and it became almost kind of a clear picture that this guy just does not know what he's doing, and he's not going to figure out what the hell he's doing. And that was what the biggest takeaway was with the Bobby Slowik process. And was Bobby Slowik the only problem? No. But when you're talking about this offense, there's multiple problems, and the guy overseeing it was there. And Demeco Ryans, he made a mistake, and he's moved on from it. So props to him. The question is, what now? Where do we go from here? Ian Rappaport mentioned the name Gerard Johnson. He's also mentioned the name Clint Kubiak. Where are we going from here?
You've got to go out and you got to cast a wide net. I mean, they only interviewed 3 guys ahead of Demeco Ryans deciding on Bobby Slowik. They interviewed Slowik, they interviewed Cliff Kingsbury, and that was a couple of days before they decided on Slowik. So I don't even know, how realistic it was that Kingsbury had a shot at that job. And the other name that they interviewed was a guy named Nick Caley, who at the time, the resume was a little lacking. He'd been the tight ends coach in New England. And so they only talked to 3 guys. I talked to a lot of guys. There's an element of getting the ball rolling because there's a couple of offensive coordinator jobs open where they should be talking to some of the same candidates. I mean, you think about Tampa being open now. Their offensive coordinators turned into a head coach in back-to-back years. That's a pretty attractive spot. Detroit's got an opportunity to hire a new offensive mind. Seattle's already talked to a handful of guys, including one of the guys that I'm guessing the Texans are going to talk to. And even Kyle Shanahan's looking for an offensive coordinator. Now, you don't call plays there, but if Shanahan offers a guy a job and you're still going through the process, maybe that accelerates things. So you got to get moving. You got to move through a bunch of names pretty quickly if you're the Texans, and then sort of start to pare down that big list to a smaller list of who those guys are. But there's other jobs out there. There's other jobs that you could argue are more attractive or as attractive as you. And so this is not a slow process if you're going to interview a bunch of different people, which I believe they should.
I disagree. I disagree wholeheartedly with that. They know who they're hiring. And that's where you and I disagree. I think there's a tendency. I think it's good for talking points. And I'm not trying to minimize it. I think the speculation is relevant because we don't necessarily know, but I find it very hard to believe that they fired Bobby Slowik and don't know who they're going with. I just don't. I don't think they.
Well, you got a top choice. You got to still figure out if you want the guy or not, and if he wants you.
They know
it's a 2-person situation.
Well, I mean, and you know how that works. There's agents, there's all that, there's back channels. I think they have a very strong idea who they're going to hire. They might go through some process, they might gather other information, but they know who they're going to hire. They're not just blindly firing Bobby Slowik and starting the process right now. They know.
Okay, well, you still got to talk to people in case you don't get that guy because you're not the top job out there.
I think they would know that they could get that guy, and I think it is an appealing job. I'm with you on the.
Okay, well then, hire him today. What's the wait?
They have to go through a process. They have to go through a process. They still got to get information. I think the Gerard Johnson interview is very important because you can get information from Gerard Johnson now that he knows he's not working with Bobby Slowik. Maybe there's a little bit more aggressiveness. Maybe you get some more stuff behind the scenes. I don't think you hire Gerard Johnson. I just don't. I think that would be borderline incompetent to hire Gerard. And I like Gerard. I just think that would be borderline incompetent. We've criticized a lot of assistant coaches and position coaches this year, and the quarterback coach shouldn't be immune from that based on everything we saw. Just like the tight end coach shouldn't be, just like the O-line coach shouldn't be. The quarterback coach, the OC, the quarterback coach should not be immune from that. So I don't see that as an appropriate thing. I think the interview is important. But the Gerard Johnson thing, to me, that would be worst case scenario. And I'm saying this about someone who I like a lot. Personally, I like Gerard Johnson. I think he's got a bright future, but I think hiring someone on this staff, I don't even care if he's called plays before or not, but I just think just hiring someone on this staff with what we saw from CJ last year and him being part of the surroundings, I think that would be a mistake.
It would be the same level as keeping Bobby Slowik for me. So totally unacceptable is how I would phrase that. I mean, Gerard Johnson been coaching for a handful of years. What's his ability to put together a staff? Yeah, Demeco can help him. Yeah, Nick Caserio can help him. But if they felt strongly about him and his potential, then they should have figured out something and given him an opportunity during the season. I can't imagine that that's an actual real path they'd be excited to go down, but you can gather information. And oh, by the way, if you're Gerard Johnson and you don't get another offensive coordinator job, if you interview for the OC job, you're also kind of interviewing to keep your quarterback job as well.
Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum should be the QB coach next year. Gerard, it'll take him 5 seconds to get a job. They'd like him. They might keep him. I would be fine with that. I'm not completely opposed, but Case Keenum's going to be a coach. He's more than qualified to be a quarterback coach. I know some will say, well, he hadn't coached. He's been a coach. He's basically been a coach, and he's been as close to a quarterback as you can possibly be as anything. I think Case gets into coaching, so I would take Case as the QB coach, and the next coach comes in. Maybe it's Kubiak.
So do you feel like they should have fired Gerard today as well with Bobby Slowik and Chris Strausser?
No, you got to conduct the interview. You got to get as much information as possible. I mean, it's the same reason, like whenever a new person takes over, like in a company, you want to at least, even if you know you're going to make significant changes, you want to at least pick the brains of the people who are still there. And if they keep Gerard, they keep Gerard. I'm not like opposed to that. I'm opposed to him being the OC. I'm not opposed to him staying around.
It sounded like you were opposed to him being the quarterback coach.
No, I don't know why it's not talked about. Like we go far enough to talk about the O-line coach. We go far enough to talk about tight end coach. We go far enough to talk about wide receiver coach at times.
Well,
like
we've talked about it.
I know we have.
Yeah.
We have. But now it's like Ian Rappaport and all these other folks are like, the Gerard Johnson's like the popular name. And it's like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, as far as I think a lot of people have attached the words internal candidates. Yeah, you shouldn't hire the offense coordinator from internal candidates. Not
Right.
when the offense was as bad as it was last year. So
Right.
You want to talk to them, you want to interview them, you want to interview them to give them the opportunity to keep their job, then be my guest. But I don't feel like any of those guys should be serious contenders for the job as far as internal guys.
Fact, I agree with you. Space City Ballers swarming the soup. The super chat here. We're reacting to the firing of Bobby Slowik, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you here on SNL.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Says McCown wanted CJ when he was in Carolina. He even told him at the combine, we'll find a gym when you come to Carolina, until Tepper changed that. By the way, Josh McCown would smoke CJ on the basketball court too, by the way. Yeah, there was that. Zach Rose says we need the ultimate damn it, Bobby shout outs to the GOATs.
Damn it, Bobby.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to die, but it's there. Someone says, damn it, Landry, rip it for the one time.
He wants a damn it, Bobby.
Oh, okay.
Damn it, Bobby.
There you go.
We got to figure out if Hank ever said damn it somebody else's name, and then they have to hire that guy.
Oh, hey, if there's anything
damn
I can
it,
do,
Josh.
if there's anything that I can't do a lot, but I can find drops for guys. There's not a lot I can do. There's not a lot you can trust me to do. You can trust me to do a couple things. You can trust me to cover the Texans. You can trust me to be on, and you can trust me to find drops. I will promise you I can find drops.
You're going to have to go through the whole King of the Hill catalog to see when Hank said damn it.
It might be someone else. They just mentioned, and that's been my guy for a long time. We'll get to yours in a sec, Cody. Let us know who you think. There's a lot of common names. I would say the most popular guy, we'll get to him in a second. But my guy's always been Josh McCown. I'm going to ride and die with Josh McCown for a while. I understand the pushback. I just don't think you can duplicate that experience. I don't think you can duplicate those leadership qualities, and I don't think anyone in the league coaching possesses that much quarterback knowledge. So that would be my guy. He's also in the system. I understand all the pushback for that, but that's going to be my guy till the end. And that's just where I'm at. I think he's just qualified. I don't know Josh McCown. I think he's very qualified. I think he's been destined to be a coach for a long time. And I think much like Case Keenum, he's basically been doing coaching things for a long time and been in multiple buildings. Stoots, who is your guy?
One point about McCown. Today, he's 1,000 times more worthy of an offensive coordinator job than he was a head coach job a few years ago. I understand folks didn't want him to be the head coach a couple of years ago, and there was some, hey, go get experience. Okay, well, he went and got experience. You factor in the playing stuff. Like, he's 1,000 times more qualified to be an offensive coordinator today than he was to be a head coach a few years ago.
Yeah, and look, the head coach thing, would I hire Josh McCown as head coach the years ago, and I'm not trying to go back in this rabbit hole, it was a effed up situation. So I thought it was like a F it type of hire. Like, you ended up hiring David Culley and Lovie Smith. So yeah, we can make that clear there. Who is Cody Stoots' top choice? Before we get to that, let's hear from Evan. Evan says CJ's throwing 40 TDs next season. Bet it. You can get some good odds on that, I bet, Evan. You can get some good odds on that.
Doubling his touchdown number. That'd be impressive.
Yes, it would.
Maybe Landry will draft him in the third round of fantasy again.
He's off my board.
So my top choice to replace Bobby Slowik is the Los Angeles Rams tight ends coach / pass game coordinator, a guy named Nick Caley. We mentioned him a moment ago. He was the third person that interviewed for the offensive coordinator job 2 years ago that ultimately went to Bobby Slowik. What did Caley do in those 2 years? Well, he left New England, no longer the tight ends coach in New England. He went and coached on Sean McVay's staff. And at the end of 1 year with Sean McVay, the New England Patriots came calling and they said, hey, we want you to be the offensive coordinator. Here's $3 million. And he said, thanks, no thanks. I'm going to stick with Sean McVay for a whole nother year.
Smart.
He stuck with McVay for a whole nother year. He's been a part of what they've put together in LA. And Nick Caley is my top guy for the offensive coordinator spot. He's in the pipeline and the rumor line for the Jets as well. But Caley's my guy, and he's got the Caserio connection. He coached under the Patriots regime back in the day, so experience with that offense, experience with McVay, went back to McVay saying no thanks to a promotion. I really like that about him, getting just a little bit more seasoning. He feels pretty ready for the opportunity. So Caley's my top guy amongst the OC potential possibilities.
Stoots is hungry. He's hungry. He's starving.
You want to know what else about Nick Caley that'd be interesting?
Sure.
The assistant offensive line coach for the Rams is my top offensive line coach pick.
Yeah,
So
I know.
you could bring him over, Zach Cromer. You could bring him over with Nick Caley if you hire Nick Caley.
Stoots is starving.
Okay, I can't wait to see what dumb stuff you say here.
You see him climbing up the tree. He has a craving for that McVay tree fruit. He is very, very hungry for that McVay tree fruit. He's climbing. He's climbing. Is he going to get to the top and get that McVay tree fruit that is just dangling in front of him as the Texans fire their O-line coach and offensive coordinator?
It's better to pick off the McVay tree than any other tree right now. You look at Kevin O'Connell. You look at Zach Taylor. You look at LaFleur in Green Bay. Like all those guys had the Sean McVay rehab situation. Liam Cohen, who's a Sean McVay guy before he went to Kentucky. He's a head coach now. He's in the division. You'll see him twice a year. The McVay tree's where you want to be picking off of. That Shanahan tree, that tree's rotten. You want to be picking off the McVay tree when you're talking offense.
Tony Romo for OCLOL. People keep mentioning these guys who make like 8 figures a year to hang out and be themselves. Like I saw Peyton Manning in my chat. I saw
Troy Aikman.
Someone said Tom Brady. It's like Troy Aikman makes.
Brady can't do it because he owns part of the Raiders.
Yeah, but Aikman makes like millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to broadcast, still be able to run his beer company, hang out. He's over 20 mil, I think. And
Tom Brady makes like 30 mil, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's up there.
Yeah.
But like, do you think that he wants to come be an offensive coordinator? Like, come on, fellas.
Yeah.
They know how much that sucks. They know that grind.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So Stoots wants the McVay. The most popular name right now, it's Chip Kelly. And I actually went in the archives because I remember at Demeco's opening press conference, I was there as well as you were. This was Demeco talking about the influence that coaches had on his career, and the most popular name right now, I would say, is that fair to say?
I see Chip Kelly more than any other name. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not making that up. Here was Demeco Ryans talking about that guy when asked about the guys who influenced him to be a coach.
With Coach Chip Kelly, what I learned from him, he was a master motivator, but he was also an innovator. And Chip Kelly, he didn't waste. He was always on the cutting edge, right? Always looking for ways to get better with sports science, technology. And I take things that I learned from all these men, and that's how I feel like you build an organization, right? You build a first-class organization.
All right, so that's him talking about Chip. I don't have like a lot of hesitations with Chip Kelly. Like,
let me add some seasoning to the Chip Kelly thing.
Okay.
Demeco Ryans played for Chip Kelly in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly's nickname for Demeco Ryans was Mufasa, the Lion King, because basically Demeco kind of ran things for him and kind of ran things for the defense. So there was a good relationship, the player-coach relationship from back in the day. So I have to imagine there's a positive relationship should it be new boss, employee.
Right. What is your pushback on Chip Kelly? Like,
I don't think he would take the job. Like the Ohio State offensive coordinator job that he has right now, he starts with a stacked deck that basically only 10 universities get anywhere close to every year. Like he starts with an inherent advantage as a coach that other coaches don't have, with the exception of like 9 other guys.
Here's my thing though.
And he has that built in. They're not stopping at Ohio State. They're not going anywhere. This wasn't a one-off. This ain't TCU where all of a sudden they're a joke now and can't do anything. Like, it's a juggernaut. He's at the helm of it. Why leave that?
Well, my answer would be this. Do you think he's making as much money as there's a couple of things. Number one, do you think he's making as much money as he can as an NFL OC? Like, I don't think Ohio State's paying like $2-3 million for a coordinator. Like, I think the Texans could. Like, I don't think that's happening.
I mean, if money was an issue, he wouldn't have stopped being a head coach. Like, if money was the thing that matters to him, like, he would have kept being a head coach. He left the head coaching job at UCLA.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because I didn't say money was the only thing. He's basically doing the same job, except he's getting more money. So that's not the same. The other thing about it is he would be. I don't think that he's like aspiring to be.
He makes $2 million a year at Ohio State.
Okay, well, yeah, damn, that's good money then. So yeah, so if they offer him 3, does that change it? But yeah, that's great money. Good job, Ohio State, for that.
And I have to imagine he's probably getting a raise.
Yeah. So the money would be one, like, why he might want to leave. But if they're gonna pay like that, that makes it difficult. The other thing is, I don't know about vindication or anything like that. I don't think that there's like some need for Chip Kelly to vindicate himself, but I do think there's like a natural ego to where you've reached the highest mountain in college. Like, maybe you want to go try to reach it in the NFL. And I don't think that this guy really has aspirations to be a head coach again. I think Chip Kelly's probably over that. So I think he's probably satisfied being an OC. So maybe going to the NFL when you've already accomplished about as much as you can accomplish in college would be something that's appealing to him.
So just to be one of the few guys that could say he coordinated a national championship and a Super Bowl.
Depending on the bread too.
Unique resume.
Maybe.
I mean, the Texans aren't lacking for money. If they want to outbid Ohio State, they can outbid Ohio State. I just don't know that money is the only thing, or money is going to be a heavy thing. Like, Chip ain't hurting for cash.
No.
I mean, he got a couple of payoffs when he left the NFL, and I'm sure he was making, I think, $4 million a year at UCLA. So, I mean, he ain't hurting for cash.
No, he's good on the bread.
But if you
get more is more. If you want the same gig,
if you want to pay him an incredible amount of money and basically force him to consider it, then yeah, I mean, be my guest. And like, as far as experienced guys that are exciting candidates, like guys that have a lot of experience calling offense that are exciting candidates, Kelly's at the top. He makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with a potential Chip Kelly hire. Zach says Connor Stallions OC, and we win the chip every year. Talking about the spy for Michigan. So there's that. The Chip Kelly thing is very, very popular. I think we agree on that. And then there's the other name that's coming up, Kubiak, which
not Gary.
John McClain, Gary Kubiak.
I can't believe he did this.
He's taken over. It's taken over the Love You Blue, where now everything has to be about Gary Kubiak with McClain.
I can't believe he did that.
I didn't even see the tweet. You told me about it, and you're all pissed.
Yeah, he's John McClain said maybe the Texans could hire Clint Kubiak, who's one of Gary's sons, and they could get his father out of retirement to be a consultant. Gary hasn't coached since 2020.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Okay, explain to me when he coached.
Coaches every morning, sir. I've had him on this show multiple times with the locker room, and every morning he's on a Zoom overseas teaching them the game of football, my friend. He's been coaching on.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Warclaw Polish Panthers from
Yep.
the Polish Football League.
Every morning, Cody.
Yeah, he's a coaching advisor for them. Okay, well, let me rephrase my question or my comment here. Gary Kubiak hasn't coached in the NFL since 2020. And so, and you can't tell me that some other teams hadn't at least thought about it. It ain't happening. We're 5 years past this, okay? And if he was an advisor for the Texans, he can't wake up and get on his tractor and hang out whenever he wants.
How often is Coop on the tractor?
I mean, he made it sound like when he's talked about it, like he gets on there a couple times a week. He's probably got a lot of land. He's probably got to get on the tractor a bunch. But let's talk about the son. Let's talk about the actual candidate, Clint Kubiak.
Yeah,
So,
I like Clint. I don't think Clint excites you too much.
He has far more experience than from an offensive coordinator standpoint than McCown does, than Nick Caley does, than Dave Ragone does. Like, he's actually had to call NFL offenses. And he called it in 2021 with the Minnesota Vikings. He called the offense last year with the Saints. In between those two stints, he spent a little time in Denver, and then he spent some time in San Francisco. And this is a continuation of the style of offense that you run now, hopefully with a Clint Kubiak spin on it. And I mean, the Vikings weren't terrible when he was the offensive coordinator. It wasn't like they were awful. They were about middle of the pack, a little bit closer to 10 than they were to 20.
Is Kubiak being the glory days more of an indictment on just the overall mediocre level at which the Texans have performed for a long time? Like, don't you think it's kind of weird? Like, I hear Cowboys fans want Dion or Troy, those were elite glory days. Do you think it's just kind of, I like Gary, but is it just kind of speaking like a representation of how meh things have been around here?
Well, Gary Kubiak's tenure got reframed because Bill O'Brien was an asshole, and everybody longed for the days
and
of Gary.
A football idiot offensively.
And everybody longed for the days of Gary as he was winning a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, even though people forget that Gary told Peyton Manning no thanks when he wanted to come to Houston and stick it to the Colts twice a year. Yeah, Kubiak had 2 really good seasons, and that was it. He had a couple of other solid seasons. The offense was pretty decent under him with a couple of really good years, and then it fell apart in 2013, and he was fired. And then he won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, and everybody was happy for him, but they sort of misremember how good, how bad the Kubiak days are.
People wanted him out of town, man. Badly.
Yeah, he wouldn't start Case Keenum.
There wasn't an outrage when he got fired. There wasn't some sort of there was some big demand or anything like that when he got canned. But now all of a sudden it's bring him back, Gary. We got to get Gary Kubiak. I love Gary. I'm making fun of it because it's just funny. I think it's funny to him. Because because when you talk to him about it, he's like, well, it's crazy because you always ask him about coming back. He's like, well, they didn't want me here when I was here. Now all of a sudden they want me back.
Yeah. He had 3 winning seasons.
And I love Coob, man. I love Coob. But yeah, that's really what we got on the Bobby Slowik thing. I mean, this is gonna take us through this week. We'll see what happens. I anticipate the interviews. I anticipate the Gerard Johnson interview, and I anticipate the normal thing. For me, my worst case scenario is you hire someone that's already on the staff. Best case, I like all these candidates. I think it's good. I think they know who they're going to hire, though. I don't think that they're figuring anything out. I think they know. They can learn some stuff along the way for the path, but I think they already know where the end destination is. There can be some stops along the way, but I think the Texans know which way they're going and where they're going. That's just me, though.
A name that I've seen a couple of different times pop up that I just don't understand how he could get in the conversation is Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur. The Rams don't have to let him interview. So they don't have to let him interview. So you'd have to need the Rams' permission to do that. Don't know why they would do it. They seem to like him. Unless his contract expired, but he just got there. So I can't imagine that's the case. And LaFleur and Bobby Slowik are friends. So by taking over my friend's job right after they get fired, mean, LaFleur's got other options, so I don't know that Mike LaFleur is actually a candidate.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Who knows? But
I think it's an important designation because I've seen some other
Nah,
reporters throw it out.
and it's kind of someone getting another shot after the Jets turmoil and all that. So who knows? We'll see how it goes. Cody, appreciate the resource of all the names and stuff. That is alive and well. Good job on the live earlier today. I had a
Good
live
job
as
on your
well. Night stream tonight. We're going to talk about the CJ factor to all this, everything that's going on. We're going to sprint into the weekend, and then next Monday, next time you hear us, see us on SNL, you're going to have a decent idea, better idea of what the hell's going on with this whole thing. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.